This your boy John, a Liquidator, coming back with another video. So it looked like Caitlin Clark is being blamed for the epic fail for the WNBA. Now, it's no secret that the WNBA has hostile players, bro. We all witnessed it during the 2000.
The WNBA is facing a full-blown crisis. CBA talks have hit a standstill, free agency is frozen, and the entire 2026 season hangs in the balance. Yet somehow, according to multiple insiders, it's Caitlin Clark who's being dragged into the blame game. The very same player who sparked a $2 billion media rights deal, the rookie who tripled attendance and shattered every viewership record in league history, is now being cast as the scapegoat for a labor dispute she has absolutely no control over.
Now, the players had a chance to go on a strike right before Christmas. We didn't see the strike come, but I'm here to tell you they could still go on strike because the committee could enforce a strike, or the owners could enforce a work stoppage. Now, word on the street is that the owners is not looking to do that. They telling teams and coaches to move forward with free agency negotiations, which we're going to.
Here's the situation as it stands. The Players Association could have walked out before Christmas. They chose not to, but the threat of a strike hasn't vanished. The owners still have the power to shut everything down at any moment. Sources inside the league say the owners are instructing teams to push ahead with free agency talks anyway, which speaks volumes about who's really in control here. The players might feel like they're holding all the cards, but the owners are moving the game forward with or without them. The idea of blaming Caitlin Clark for this chaos is downright ridiculous. This is the player who, in a single season, brought in more revenue than some entire franchises have seen in decades. She drew casual fans, major sponsors, and national media to a league that had been bleeding money for 27 years. And now, because negotiations are messy and some players aren't getting exactly what they want, she and her fan base are being targeted. It's not just unfair, it's a spectacularly short-sighted move.
Watching the damn videos. That is the current state of the WNBA. Now, for my channel here, it ain't looking good, but I'm gonna keep on keeping on. Now, with that being said, we do got some updates on free agency. This article was released a few hours ago, and it stated WNBA telling teams they could send free agent offers amid CBA.
Here's what's really going on behind closed doors. Friday night, just before midnight, the WNBA triggered what's called a status quo obligation, a labor law mechanism that lets the league make qualifying offers to free agents even without a signed CBA. Multiple sources confirmed that teams were given the green light to send out offers based on the terms of the expired agreement. In other words, the league is basically saying, we're moving forward whether the negotiations get resolved or not. The players can either take part or sit back and watch from the sidelines.
Adam Silver don't give a about none of the players. The owners don't either. They don't care about what y'all talking about. We gonna get a deal done. See, I believe there's a clause some way or somewhere in there to where the owners could override the players. That's what I'm thinking. If they're telling them they can move forward with free agency, that means to tell me we're probably going to get it.
Here's the tricky part. Under US labor law, the WNBA is required to maintain the status quo from the previous CBA while negotiations are stalled. That means teams can still issue qualifying offers and use core designations, essentially franchise tags, giving exclusive negotiation rights to certain players. The deadline for those offers was January 20th, so teams had to submit them under the old CBA rules. No new salary cap, no updated revenue sharing, everything frozen in the 2025 structure. Unsurprisingly, players aren't signing. Why would they? Without knowing what the new salary cap will be, agreeing to a deal now would be a financial misstep. And so we're trapped in this strange limbo. Offers are on the table, but nobody is picking them up.
Know the ins and outs of the clauses in these CBA negotiations, but it looked like they finna veto the players. They don't give a damn. It's either like you play ball or you're not play ball. We just gonna find somebody else to take your spot. It says the league has called every team to tell them they can send offers to free agents during this status quo period. Sources tell front office sport, but players are unlikely to sign anything that's in limbo, which we already knew that because the money is involved in these CBA negotiations. Now, it stated when the clock strikes midnight on Friday night, which we already passed that. Now, it said under U.S. labor law, the WNBA has a status quo obligation to allow the sending of qualifying offers. The
timing couldn't be worse. A huge wave of players is about to Enter unrestricted free agency, including star talent like Kelsey Mitchell, who just set the Indiana Fever's franchise record for three-pointers and lit up the court alongside Caitlin Clark last season. Mitchell is just one of dozens of players whose contracts were structured to expire before 2026, anticipating that the union might opt out of the previous CBA. They were betting on themselves and on the league's growth, but now that gamble could backfire spectacularly. Meanwhile, half of the league's top players are suiting up in Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league that just kicked off its second season. According to multiple reports, the ratings are underwhelming, which weakens a major bargaining point for players. The idea that they can generate revenue outside the WNBA. If a condensed, star-studded alternative league can't draw viewers, it's hard to make the case for a bigger cut of the WNBA's revenue.
Legally authorized period of delay could be agreed to by the union and the league, resulting in the complete pause of all free agency activity until a new CBA is rectified. Now, as of Friday night, just before midnight, multiple league sources told them with the ultimate faith, which, you know, they ain't got no deal. Now, in a statement, the union said that the league and the owners have remained committed to undervalued player contribution, which we went over that last video. If you guys did not see that, goes on to say, under the Aspire CBA qualifying offers, including core destinations, which grants teams exclusive negotiation rights to a player under the tag, could be sent out no later than January 20th. However, these offers will all be subjected to the terms of previous CBA. Now, without a real salary cap, no one is going.
Here's the reality nobody wants to face. There's a big gap between what players think they're worth and what the market will actually pay. The WNBA just landed that $2 billion media rights deal. It sounds huge, right? But spread across 12 teams over multiple seasons, it's not the windfall many players expected, especially once you account for operating costs, travel, facilities, and the fact that most franchises are still losing money. Owners are staring at their balance sheets thinking, we're not there yet. Players are comparing themselves to NBA contracts and saying, we deserve our share. And in the middle of this economic tug of war is Caitlin Clark, the very player who made this deal possible. Networks weren't handing over billions out of goodwill. They were chasing Caitlin Clark's viewership numbers, and by extension, the attention of everyone in the league.
Bro, it's just not looking good, and for them to be blaming Caitlin Clark, like I stated, is beyond me. I want to know what the hell is going to happen with free agency. That's the only thing I'm really caring about right now, because that's the only story that really matters. I believe there's some type of way.
This is Kelsey Mitchell, the Indiana Fever's all-time three-point leader. She was a solid, consistent player for 7 years before Caitlin Clark arrived, and suddenly she was thrust into the national spotlight. Mitchell went from being a respected player on a struggling franchise to a key piece of must-watch basketball. Her stats jumped, her visibility exploded, and now she's in a position to capitalize on that exposure in free agency. If there even is a free agency, if the season actually happens, if the CBA gets finalized, there are a lot of ifs for a player stepping into her prime earning years.
I gotta keep putting forth my best effort every time I step in.
And how we need to be to make a playoff run.
It's Clark splashing home a three.
I mean, anytime you get to be a part of the first WNBA team in Indiana, and the first WNBA championship for the Fever, and now an opportunity for the first Commissioner's Cup.
Boston is wide open, and splashes by Mitchell, hangs, lays it in, and a foul. Atkins defending, flips the pass back to Howard, launches a three. Oh, the connection to Howard. Splashes the triple. Cunningham on the drive, gets to the rim.
Let's break down why Kelsey Mitchell's situation, and really the whole WNBA story right now, is so fascinating. Mitchell has lived through the lean years in Indiana, playing in half-empty arenas with barely any media attention. Then last season happened. Suddenly the Fever were selling out games, getting national broadcasts, playoff appearances, and opportunities in the Commissioner's Cup. Mitchell's talent, which deserved recognition for years, finally got the spotlight she earned, but none of it would have been possible without Caitlin Clark completely changing the the league's landscape almost overnight. So when some players start blaming Clark for CBA complications, remember this: the same players are trying to negotiate bigger contracts based on the revenue she generated. That level of cognitive dissonance is staggering. Now let's address the elephant in the room. There's a growing narrative spreading online and creeping into mainstream sports media that Clark might somehow be responsible for the WNBA collapsing. Not because she's done anything wrong, but because the league's existing players, teams, and infrastructure aren't equipped to handle the spotlight she brought. One viral tweet put it bluntly: Caitlin Clark could indirectly cause the WNBA to end. And while that sounds hyperbolic, there's a kernel of truth in it. Before Clark arrived, the WNBA had a comfortable niche existence, a small but loyal fan base, manageable expectations, and enough leeway for mediocre performances to go unnoticed. Then she appeared, and suddenly everyone's watching. Suddenly, standards exist. Suddenly, unprofessional behavior and poor performances are exposed under a microscope. And many players and executives weren't ready for that level of accountability. The way some WNBA players treated Clark during the 2024 season is going to be studied in sports management courses for decades. A generational talent arrives, bringing unprecedented attention and revenue, and instead of embracing it, veteran players physically targeted her, downplayed her accomplishments, and made it clear she wasn't welcome. Kennedy Carter's blindside hip check, Dejanai Carrington's eye poke, defended by half the league. The endless narrative suggesting Clark's popularity was about her race or sexuality rather than her talent. And now those same players want bigger contracts based on revenue she created, while simultaneously blaming her for the league's negotiation issues. It's like burning your own house down and complaining about the smoke. Here's the hard truth the WNBA doesn't seem to grasp. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the league nearly as much as the league needs her. She could retire tomorrow, rake in more money from endorsements than she'd ever earn on the court, move into broadcasting, coaching, or countless other ventures, and remain one of the most marketable athletes in the world. The WNBA, on the other hand, lose Clark and most casual fans vanish. Media attention drops, sponsorships disappear, television contracts lose value. So when people start suggesting Clark is the problem behind CBA delays, they're playing a dangerous game. Push her too far, make the environment toxic, and she might decide it's not worth it. And then what? Networks won't honor those contracts when viewership plummets. Sponsors won't write checks when the star attraction is gone. The WNBA had a historic opportunity in 2024 to build something lasting. Lightning in a bottle, a transcendent talent who could have been the league's face for the next 15 years. And instead of protecting her, they let jealousy and resentment poison the environment. Players who should have mentored her tried to injure her. Media who should have celebrated her wrote think pieces about her problematic popularity. League officials who should have marketed her spent their time downplaying her impact to appease veteran players feeling threatened. Now we're watching the fallout play out in real time. CBA negotiations are stalled because players want contracts reflecting Clark-era revenue, but won't acknowledge she's the reason that revenue exists. Free agency is frozen because nobody knows the new financial framework. The 2026 season is at risk because both sides are digging in. And through all of this, Caitlin Clark is just trying to play basketball. She's not negotiating. She's not threatening to leave. She's simply existing. And somehow, she's been cast as the scapegoat for everyone else's dysfunction. So here's the question: was it worth it? Was the jealousy worth it? The targeting, the undermining, the constant hostility, was it worth jeopardizing the very thing that elevated the league? Because if the CBA collapses and the 2026 season is canceled, the WNBA will have sabotaged its best asset and they'll have no one to blame but themselves. What do you think happens if the season gets canceled? Does Caitlin Clark come back? Or does she decide the WNBA isn't worth the toxicity? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow this story as it develops, hit subscribe, because this saga is far from over.